Yes, dear students, in the previous class we have started with this new chapter, organisms and population. So in this chapter, as an introductory topic, we have learnt about the various levels of biological organizations. So it can be biome, largest level of organization. So we have studied that the biological organization, or you can say diversification of living organisms, starts at the level of macromolecules, and right from the macromolecules it ranges up to the biome. So that way you can consider macromolecule to be the smallest of biological organizations and the largest one will be the biome. So as discussed in the previous class, so these are the different levels of biological organizations, and the main four biological organizations we are going to discuss in this chapter. Of course, we have already discussed these are organisms, populations, communities and biomes. We have also understood the definitions of all these things, and we have understood organisms and its environment. So what is the importance of the environment for any living organism? So obviously, if it is a living organism, it must be influenced by the environment surrounding that. And organisms must be able to adapt and adjust to the changing environmental condition. Only then that particular organism will be able to survive in that. So that is what we call it as the rule of survival of the fittest. And here we find different types of habitats provided for different living organisms based on two main variations. One is the variation of the temperature, annual temperature variation, and other is annual precipitation. So as I have told you in the previous class, annual precipitation refers to not only rainfall but also what? Snowfall. Because it is not in all the regions of the world, it's only the rainfall, it is not true. But some cases, in some regions or in some areas of the world, you can also see the snowfall. So based on that, we have identified these different biomes like that of the Arctic and Alpine, coniferous, temperate forest, tropical forest, desert, grassland, etc. and etc. So these are the things we have discussed. And it is also important for us. See, I have told you in the previous class, organisms, they interact with each other. Organisms, they interact among themselves. It is also true, organisms will also interact with some other non-living things, or we can call them as abiotic factors. So you have come across the abiotic factors when we have studied in the previous year about the respiration, we have studied about the photosynthesis chapter. So you know that plants usually, so on the whole you can consider all the organisms usually, they interact with various abiotic factors. It can be pH, it can be moisture in the air, it can be soil, it can be water, it can be temperature, it can be air. So like this, we find different abiotic factors which are continuously in interaction with the living organisms, and that is what will make an ecosystem, right? So the major abiotic factors we are studying in this chapter are temperature, water, light and soil. The four main abiotic factors which are continuously in interaction with the biotic factors which we are studying in this chapter are temperature, water, light and soil. So before I forget, I'll tell you one thing. See, whatever the written things are there on this presentation, you need to take down the notes as and when the chapter is going on. ನಿಮಗೆ ಬಂದ ನಂತರ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ಮತ್ತೆ ನೋಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ರಿವಿಷನ್ ಟೈಮ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ we will only go on revising the things and you need to take the notes as and when you are listening to this lecture. Continue. So these are the abiotic factors. Let us see the first abiotic factor, that is temperature. You know that temperature is a measure of the heat in the atmosphere, right? Temperature is the measure of the heat. So in order to measure the heat, maybe inside the body of a living organism, maybe outside the body of a living organism, so we use this measure called temperature, right? So temperature is most ecologically relevant abiotic factor. So of course all others are also relevant, but temperature is said to be most ecologically relevant because organisms in most ways, in almost all possible ways, are affected, are influenced by the temperature, right? So let us see how the temperature is going to affect how the interaction between the biotic factor and the abiotic factor called temperature exists. See, it varies seasonally. You know, India being a tropical country. So India being a tropical country, it will see various ranges of temperature ranging from, like you can say, from 0 degrees Celsius or sometimes even minus until 50 degrees Celsius in some areas, right? So this is because seasonal variations, and we have discussed that these seasonal variations are basically because of the rotations and revolutions of the planet Earth around the sun, right? So it varies seasonally. And one more thing to be noticed here is that when you look at the globe, so an imaginary line can be drawn exactly at the center of the globe, and that is what we call it as equator. And this equator will receive the direct sun rays from the sun, as a result of which this region, which we call it as tropical region or tropics, will be having the highest temperature as well as the highest rainfall. As we move away from this equator, or tropical region to the temperate region or to the polar region, the temperature goes on decreasing. So temperature progressively decreases. I have used this statement in the previous session also. Temperature progressively decreases means it goes on decreasing as we move away from the equator. So in the polar regions, the temperature is least. In the equator region, near the equator region, temperature is the highest. So based on this different ranges of temperature, the organisms suitably, so whichever temperature is suitable for them, organisms will be distributed in that particular geographical area. So ranges, of course, temperature on the earth, it ranges from sub-0 degrees Celsius until 50 degrees Celsius, even sometimes up to 100 degrees Celsius also, right? So we have taken the example like in the desert. In the previous slide itself, we have seen the different biomes experiencing different temperatures. Here, it ranges from sub-0 level in the polar regions, and in the high altitudes, it's going to be down only. But if you see some of the regions like the thermal vents, or they are also called as hydrothermal vents. So under the deep sea or under the ocean, there are certain fissures. On the bed of the sea, there is a small fissure on the earth through which the hydrothermally heated water comes up. Kannadadalli bisi ನೀರಿನ ಬುಗ್ಗೆಗಳು ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಿರುತ್ತೆ. So in that region, the water will be always hot, right? So it may be as the temperature may be as high as 100 degrees Celsius. Generally, we can say more than 50 degrees Celsius. So in the lower altitudes, it may reach up to 100 degrees Celsius in the places such as hydrothermal vents. So, or they are also called as thermal springs. Thermal springs are usually having the fresh water. So one is, so maybe in the sea, that is the salt water thermal springs. They are also called as hydrothermal springs or thermal vents. They are also called as deep sea thermal vents. Right? So thermal springs are most commonly seen in the northern part of India. Like if you go to Haridwar, so there you will see the thermal springs. So commonly in front of the temple itself, there is a huge pond where even though the temperature outside is in minus, the water in that small pond will be always hot. It is because of these thermal vents, right? So these organisms, as I told you, organisms, they have to adapt and adjust to variations in the temperature, and they will inhabit certain regions where the temperature will be suitable for those organisms, for themselves, right? So how it is going to affect on the organism is, so kinetics of the enzymes in the body of the living organisms. You know that enzymes are chemical messengers in our body. You have learned this in the biomolecules chapter. So these may be proteinaceous molecules or non-proteinaceous molecules. So they are going to control a whole lot of processes in our body, right? And so kinetics of enzymes, when it is controlled by the temperature, temperature is directly also what responsible for basal metabolism rate. See, you need to understand this. Basal metabolism rate means ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಸೇರಿಸಿದಾಗ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ದ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಔಟ್, ದ ಎಂಡೋಥರ್ಮಲ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಲೀಸ್ಡ್ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ದ ವೇರಿಯಸ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್, ಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಬಯೋಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಆರ್ ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಎನರ್ಜಿಯನ್ನು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಸಲ್ ಮೆಟಬಾಲಿಸಮ್ ರೇಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ basal metabolism rate directly it will be influenced by the temperature. So based on what kind of living organisms are going to adapted for what range of temperature, we identify two different types of organisms here. One type is called as eurythermal organisms. You can commonly call it as organisms or animals of the code because this is largely applicable to the animals. Eurythermal organisms or animals, they can tolerate a wide range of temperatures. Eurythermal organisms, they can tolerate and thrive in different wide range of temperatures. The best example for this can be the human beings. So human beings, you will see human beings also living in the polar regions. They live in the temperate countries like Australia and American countries. They also live in the tropical countries, right? So that is how. So human being can be one of the best examples. Other examples can be snakes, wall lizard, rats, camel, etc., etc. Right? So these are the other eurythermal organisms. Then stenothermal organisms are the organisms which can thrive, which cannot live in a very wide range of temperature. They can only live in a very narrow range of temperatures. A very narrow range of temperatures. Example like fish. You cannot keep the fish in a hot sun, right? So it can be snails, or like if you take the example of plants also, there are some plants which can live. Usually angiosperms are adapted most efficiently, and that is why they are cosmopolitan in distribution. Whereas gymnosperms or pteridophytes or bryophytes, when you see, they are restricted to a particular region. So you cannot find these bryophytes, gymnosperms and pteridophytes everywhere like that of the angiosperms. So they can be referred to as stenothermal. If you consider the examples of animals, fish, snails, polar bears, you cannot find a polar bears in a desert, or you cannot find a camel in the what is that, in the this thing, in the polar ice caps, like that. So these organisms, based on their range of suitable temperatures, they will be adapted and they will be inhabiting the different temperatures, right? Then the next one is water. So water is the next abiotic component that we need to discuss here. You know that. So the earth, the globe, is around 75% of the area on the earth is covered only by water, right? But not all of this water is usable because most of the surface of the earth is covered by the sea or the oceanic water, we call it as, right? So, and as per a theory, according to a particular theory of evolution, it says that life originated for the first time in water itself. Life on earth originated for the first time inside the water, and without water it is impossible to imagine the life on earth, right? The life would become very much unstable without the presence of water, right? So water is important to carry out various events, right? Organismic events, or you can say life processes, and water is the most important component because it is the most important raw material for the process of photosynthesis to be carried out. If at all the photosynthesis can be carried out, the plants can be called as producers. Only if the producers exist, then all other living organisms which are dependent on the plants can be existing. Otherwise, life would not have been existing, right? So, and you also know that this aquatic ecosystem, right? Aquatic habitats can be largely classified into two different types. One is the sea water or saline water, and other is freshwater ecosystem. But why? See, of course, even in the sea also, even in the river also, it is all water. But the only difference is that salinity, the content of the salt. So salt content in the water will be measured in terms of salinity. The range of salt present in the water is called as salinity, right? So this salinity ranges, the range of salinity will differ in the fresh water and in the case of the sea water. And as per the salinity ranges, the organisms living in these different environmental conditions also are different. You have studied there are different types of freshwater fishes and also marine water fishes. Why it is so? You have studied algae. Marine algae are different, freshwater algae are different, right? So reptiles, certain reptiles can survive only in the marine ecosystem. There are certain reptiles which can only live in the freshwater ecosystem. Why is it like this? Is because the main basic factor regarding this, behind this is nothing but osmoregulation. Main basic factor is nothing but osmoregulation, osmotic control. That means you have learnt about the concept of osmosis, where it should be equilibrium. What should be equilibrium? The salt, that is the solute content and solvent content inside the body of this living organism and outside the body of the living organism must be equal. That means there must be isotonic kind of solution in the living organism and outside. So these fishes living in the sea water, that is in the saline water, so they have got a mechanism of excreting lot of solutes. So concentrated excreta will come out in the case of the sea water fishes or saline fishes. If you see in the case of the freshwater fishes, the excreta of these fishes or urine of these fishes, it is not as much as concentrated in the case of the marine water fishes, right? So based on the salinity, see, when you compare the salinity of different aquatic bodies, the salinity in the inland water bodies, you can see in the case of the ponds or the lakes, right? So in that case, that is inland water, it will be less than 5. If you look at the sea water, it will be ranging between 30 to 35. Whereas if you see certain hypersaline lagoons, you can see Pulicat Lake, which is located near the Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. So in the hypersaline lagoons, so saltwater lakes, they are also called, it can be up to 100%. So as I told you, based on osmoregulation, these organisms living in the salt water and in the fresh water are different with each other. And again, just like how we classified the organisms living in different temperature conditions, such as what are those classification we have considered in the case of a temperature? You have considered stenothermal and eurythermal. Similarly, here also we have got euryhaline organisms and stenohaline organisms. So eurythermal organisms are the organisms which can thrive, which can survive in the wide ranges of temperature. Similarly, euryhaline means aquatic organisms which can tolerate and thrive, which can survive in wide range of salinity conditions, right? So example can be mussel anta helidre kappe chippugulu. Sea hare is a small snail-like organism. It's an aquatic organism. Stenohaline organisms anta helidre, these are the organisms, they are the aquatic organisms, they have got narrow range of adaptability for salinity conditions. They can live in a particular saline condition. Example can be spider crab. So just to have an insight into this, you can look at these pictures. So this is the picture of mussel. These are mussels, kappe chippugulu anta helidre kannadalli, and this is the sea hare. What you are seeing here is sea hare, H-A-R-E, sea hare, and this one is spider crab. This is the picture of spider crab you are looking at. So until now we have discussed about, see this is the sea crab, spider crab. This is what? Sea hare. This is what? Mussel. So until now we have studied two abiotic factors, water and temperature. So how they are going to affect or influence on the metabolic rate of the organisms, and how interaction between the living organisms and these abiotic factors we have studied. Thank you.